Good morning, everybody. We have another chapter of Princess and the Goblin, chapter 29. So last time that we read, we heard where Irene was that whole time that the goblins were at the house. Where was she? Curdy's house with his mom. And Curdy found his way to her. What was leading him? What was his guide? The grandmother's thread, that's right. And he finally believes in her. And even though he couldn't see the thread, he could feel it. And even though he hasn't seen the grandmother, he really believes that Irene is telling the truth because he can see that it was leading him to the right path. And it does all of these good things. And so the grandmother must be true if there were all of these things that he believes in. So we are going to find out why he rushed to his dad at the end of the last chapter. And he said, I can't take Irene to her house because I need to have something to do with my dad. So we're going to find out what that is in this chapter. It's a very short one. It's just like we're talking about prepositions. It's kind of that connector, little tiny connector between that whole plot where they were trying to kidnap Irene and the end of the book, really this big end to the book. So let's see the book here. And I'm still on the last chapter. Let me get to chapter 29 called Mason Work. Okay. Now he had all at once remembered the resolution of the goblins to carry out their second plan upon the failure of the first. So that's why he rushed to his dad. The plan B for the goblins was what? To flood the mines. That's right. They want to kill all these miners by flooding where they work. That's their second plan. Now, no doubt they were already busy, and the mine was therefore in the greatest danger of being flooded and rendered useless. Not to speak of the lives of the miners. This would be terrible, especially for the sake of all these miners being killed. Now, when he reached the mouth, which is the opening of the mine, after rousing all the miners within reach, rousing means wake them up, he found his father and a good many more just entering. They all hurried to the gang by which he had found a way into the goblin country. There, the foresight of Peter had already collected a great many blocks of stone with cement, ready for building up the weak place, well enough known to the goblins. Although there was not room for more than two to be actually building at once, they managed by setting all the rest to work in preparing the cement and passing the stones to finish in the course of just one day a huge buttress filling the whole gang. So there's this spot that the goblins were going to have the water rush in through, but they're cementing it, making a real tight wall. And supported everywhere by the live rock. So it seems like it is a very sturdy wall now. Before the hour when they usually dropped work, they were satisfied that the mine was secure. They worked so hard and they worked all together, those miners. They had heard goblin hammers and pickaxes busy all the time. And at length, they fancied they'd heard the sounds of water they had never heard before. Uh-oh. But that was otherwise accounted for when they left the mine, for they stepped out into a tremendous storm. So it wasn't water in the mine, it was a storm outside, which was raging all over the mountain. Thunder was bellowing, and the lightning lancing out of a huge black cloud which lay above it and hung down its edges of thick mist over its sides. The lightning was breaking out of the mountain too, and flashing up into the cloud. From the state of the brooks, now swollen into raging torrents. So a brook is just a little narrow stream of water. A torrent is rushing quick with all this water. It was evident that the storm had been storming all day. The wind was blowing as if it would blow him off the mountain, but anxious about his mother and the princess, Curdy darted up through the thick of the tempest. The tempest is a thick, heavy storm. So he darted up to his home. Even if they had not set out before the storm came on, he did not judge them safe, for in such a storm, Even their poor little house was in danger. Indeed, he soon found that, but for a huge rock against which it was built, and which protected it both from the blasts and the water, it must have been swept if it was not blown away. So it's a miracle that that house wasn't blown away, but it's got that huge rock that was what the house was built against, maybe one of the walls even. So for the two torrents, two huge storms into which this rock parted, the rush of water behind it united again in front of the cottage. So, sorry, I was saying for the torrents, the storm, but the torrents, once again, are like the rushing water. The tempest is the storm. But these two torrents, these rushing rivers, basically, into which this rock parted, the rush of water behind it united again in front of the cottage. So the cottage is right there in the middle, and it's basically going out and then around the cottage. So that rock just split the water so it doesn't ever hurt the house, thankfully. Two roaring and dangerous streams, which his mother and the princess could not possibly have passed. This could have killed them. It was with great, and remember where they were going? They were going to go back to the princess's house. But he's thinking they couldn't have passed that. Now, it was with great difficulty that he forced his way through one of these torrents. He's going through it to get to the house and up to the door. The moment his hand fell on the latch, through all the uproar of winds and waters came the joyous cry of the princess. "There's Curdie, Curdie, Curdie!" She was sitting wrapped in blankets on the bed, his mother trying for the 100th time to light the fire, which had been drowned out by the rain that came down the chimney. The clay floor was just a mass of mud, and the whole place looked wretched. Remember, wretched, unfortunate, and just in bad shape. But the faces of the mother and the princess shone as if their troubles only made them the merrier. So they are so happy in the middle of this storm and in a muddy floor, the rain coming through the chimney. Why do you think they're so happy? We'll see. Curdie burst out laughing at the sight of them. "I never had such fun," said the princess, her eyes twinkling and her pretty teeth shining. "Oh, how nice it must be to live in a cottage on the mountain." "Well, it all depends on what kind your inside house is," said the mother. "What do you think that means?" It all depends on the people inside the house. It is going to be fun whether you're in a palace or in a little tiny cottage if you're with the right people, because you can have fun in all sorts of circumstances like they are. "I know what you mean," said Irene. "That's the kind of thing my grandmother says." By the time Peter returned, the storm was nearly over, but the streams were so fierce and so swollen they'd gotten so big that it was not only out of the question for the princess to go down the mountain, but it was most dangerous for Peter even or Curdie to make the attempt in the gathering darkness. "They will be dreadfully frightened about you," said Peter to the princess, "but we cannot help it." He knows that they're going to be worried sick that the princess is dead or lost. But he says, "We can't help it. We must wait until morning."
Testing 1, 2. Testing 1, 2.
Testing, I guess, the intercoms here at school. Now, with Curdie's help, the fire was lighted at last, and the mother set out about making their supper.
Testing, testing.
Sorry about that. And the mother set about making their supper, and after supper, they all told the princess stories till she grew sleepy.
Testing, testing.
Then Curdie's mother laid her in Curdie's bed, which was in a tiny little garret room. As soon as she was in bed, through a little window low down in the roof, she caught sight of her grandmother's lamp shining far away beneath, and she gazed at the beautiful silvery globe until she fell asleep.
Miss Gardner?
Just a moment. Hi, Devansh. You don't need to get into the meeting if you're done.
Okay.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
Okay, sorry about that, boys and girls. Several interruptions. Let me reread this last section. Now, as soon as she was in bed, through a little window low down in the roof, she caught sight of her grandmother's lamp, shining far away beneath. And she gazed at the beautiful silvery globe until she fell asleep. I'm going to put some headphones in. Actually, I think they're done now. So sorry about all those interruptions. Let's just go over a couple last questions to review. So what do the miners do to make sure that their mine is safe?
Hey, well, I might have done it, maybe, I don't know. I'm working on a NCP 35A. I've just replaced it, and it's got 2 switch banks. It's still not working, like I don't get, like,
Okay, we'll have to finish this way. They are doing a lot of talking on the intercom, and it's distracting. So hopefully you can hear me okay. What do the miners do to make sure that the mine is safe? That's right. They make a wall. They have these cement blocks to block the water so that the goblin's plan of it rushing through a certain spot, an outlet, they blocked it up so that it wouldn't go through. Why was the princess so happy in the middle of a storm? That's right. She was happy to be with good people. Curdy's mother is such a nice woman, and she was just happy that her inside house was so nice. And it didn't matter that it was a cottage. It didn't matter if it was in the middle of a storm. She was choosing to be happy because she was with great people. So we are going to figure out in the next chapter what happens when Irene goes home. Remember, they're waiting until the storm blows over and until the storm is gone, and then they're going to return to Irene's home. Everybody's worried sick about her. So we'll find out what happens with that in our next chapter. Talk to you later. Bye.